paralegal Marquita Wilcox is suing fellow motorist Weight Loss Center salesperson Danielle Caruso for ramming her Nissan Sentra in a fit of road rage. Danielle says it was Marquita who hit her.
Yeah, this is case number 87 on the calendar in the matter of Wilcox versus Caruso. And look, we have visual aids.
Visual aids?
Visual aids.
Would you tell everybody to sit down, please?
Oh, yeah, have a seat. Thanks for reminding me.
Officer Byrd, we have a case here of two young ladies involved in a case of road rage. You don't have anything to do with this case other than you own this car that she was driving.
I'm my father.
But you don't know anything about it?
No, nothing.
So you can sit behind the visual aid over there.
Sure.
Usually we have guys involved in road rage. You know, they get all those hormones and stuff they have all juiced up. Anyway, Ms. Wilcox, it is your claim that the defendant, in an act of road rage, caused an accident which caused your car to be damaged.
Yeah.
She says that you were the one responsible for this unfortunate incident that happened on the highway, or were it not for your actions, the accident would not have taken place. So first, why don't you tell me when this incident happened and where you were going?
On the morning of February 12th, 2004, I was on my way to work.
What time?
At about 9:20, between 9:20 and 9:30.
What time do you do at work?
10 o'clock.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a paralegal.
What kind of car were you driving?
A Nissan Sentra.
What year?
2002.
And you have a current valid driver's license and did at the time of the incident?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, tell me what happened.
On the morning of February 12th, I was on my way to work. I was traveling southbound on Nob Hill Road, which Nob Hill Road, if you enter the left lane, it turns onto the expressway, which is State Road 84. We consider it to be I-595.
Which is your car?
I'm number 2. Mrs. Knight was number 1. As we entered on the expressway, I proceeded over into the center lane. As this lane ends, if you stay in this lane, you'll end up getting back off the expressway. Ms. Knight was upset that as we went to get on the expressway, I entered in front of her to get on the expressway. She was behind me yelling obscenities, acting like she was going to bump the back of my car.
So maybe you cut her off?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Your Honor, absolutely.
Shh. Shh. Maybe you cut her off?
Yes.
And she was angry?
Yes.
Go ahead.
We entered on the expressway. I proceeded into the center lane. Mrs. Knight came around me from the center lane to make her way into the third lane, where she hit that vehicle, knocked her into the median. She then came around me. As she came around me, she gave me her middle finger, as to say, you know, what the middle finger means. She came around me. She then bumped the front of me to cut me off and knock me out of my lane. She knocked my car spun out of control over here, and then back over here where I landed into the path of the first car that she knocked out, which is vehicle 3. She continued east on State Road 84, where 2 cars had to follow her to bring her back.
Not your car?
No, I was knocked off into the median. As she came back yelling, she came back cursing.
Okay, stop. Going to pick it up in a second.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay, Your Honor. Actually, there's no way possible that I could have proceeded 3 lanes over, because at 9:30 in the morning on 595, it's a major highway.
No, don't tell me what's impossible.
I have a picture here
just
to show you. Okay, so the accurate is, she was in front of me, like she said. I'm here, smashing her brakes on, flicking me off as I waved and killed her with kindness, because my mom always taught me, you kill people with kindness. Don't feed into them. So I didn't. I tried to get over another lane, and just chose right here. She got in front of me again, smashing on her brakes on a major highway, flicking me off as I'm laughing at her, because it was kind of comical to me. I was on my way to work as well. I did get over into the third lane because we still had the on-ramp lane. And as I did, I passed her. And when I passed her, I looked right at her and said, yeah, baby, you ain't in front of me anymore. I enjoyed that because you know what? She can't smash her brakes in front of me anymore. So I'm not going to rear-end someone and be at fault. So I proceeded to pass her. As I proceeded to pass her, she sped up and tried to cut in front of me. She couldn't, because my car had a little more power. I had a Ford Taurus, and it did pass her. As I passed her, she tried to push me into this lane. I couldn't go because there was a BMW truck. I did not hit that BMW truck. It is not in the accident report. That BMW truck had to go into the side of the highway here to avoid me hitting her, because it was a near miss, like it says right here. At that point, I decided to stay in this lane. That's when she continued to come in this lane, swiped the back end of my car here, which, due to her, driving ability spun her out into a NASCAR scene, which spun her out uncontrollable until she sideswiped the front end of the BMW truck, which ended them both up, her in the middle median grass area. I had no choice, because there was so much traffic still by us, to exit off, stop and call 911, which I did, and it's in the 911 report. At that point, by the time you exit, go through a shopping center, and get back on the highway, it takes a couple minutes. I then got back on the highway this way, met at the accident in the median, and her hands were going all up in the air, how I was wrong. Like I said, my mom told me to
May
kill
I
him
see
with
the
kindness.
police report, please?
I have the police report right here.
I'd like to see it.
And, Your Honor, she did hit the first car.
Just a second. Did you speak to the police
Yes, I
officer?
did.
And you spoke to the police
Yes.
officer. Did the driver of the BMW speak to the police
Yes,
officer?
they spoke to each of us separately.
Okay, that's what it suggests here. Now, after the police officer questioned the plaintiff and the driver of the BMW, you were issued a citation for careless driving. And I'm going to quote what the police officer wrote in the police report, which says exactly what she says happened. That you were driving fast. It said that vehicle number 3 was traveling on the inside lane, that vehicle number 3 was knocked off the road because of your driving, that you went
No
over
contact.
from one lane all the way over to the other lane. That's not the way we drive.
Excuse me, Your Honor. That vehicle that is the witness of vehicle number 3 did not, they were on the highway prior to us entering the highway, so she did not see the reason why I was driving exactly.
I don't know what she saw or not. All I know is you came onto the highway and you proceeded, because your car, according to this, was going faster than her car, to go all the way over into the far left lane. That's what this says you were doing. You were in a big hurry.
To avoid someone from smashing
Yes,
their
she
brakes
was.
on.
I don't, madam, I do not believe you. I do not believe that this woman got in front of you and then smashed her brakes on so that you would hit her in the rear. She doesn't look like a psychotic to me. Let me see your damages, please.
This is my damage. This is the estimate from her insurance company, and this is my pictures of my car as well.
It's clear that she hit your car.
Yes, ma'am. 2 witnesses had to bring her back, and they both came back to the scene to let the police know that they
That's not
wanted to make
correct.
sure that she was coming back.
Okay, the objective things that I have are a police report which is totally consistent with the plaintiff's story. I have pictures which clearly indicate to me that something hit her car, not that her car hit something else, which is totally consistent with this version of events. And I have a story that suggests to me that you were traveling too fast, that you wanted to get over into the fast lane, and not only did you almost cause an accident with another car, because you were going fast enough, and according to you, that road is very heavily traveled.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you could not possibly have gone from the far right lane to the far left lane.
Especially
But
on
you
high
did.
speed. I did.
But you did, because you cut off the BMW.
The BMW collided
All
with her
right,
car.
all right. You lost your temper. You acted like a fool, and you shouldn't have.
I waved at her and smiled.
You acted like a fool. Did you have insurance?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what was your deductible?
It's $500.
Okay, so you're really looking for the $500 deductible.
Well, no, because in the state of Florida, we're not required to carry comp and collision. At the time, I did not carry comp and collision.
You did not?
No, ma'am.
Why didn't you carry collision?
At the time, it wasn't on my policy. I had a policy under my mother, and at the time, it just wasn't. We did not know.
Is the car fully paid for?
No, ma'am.
Well, if it's not fully paid for, you have to carry
Yes,
collision.
you do. In the state of Florida, it is required.
Just a second. We understand each other?
Yes, ma'am.
If you don't have a car that's fully paid for, you are required to carry collision insurance. So you're going to send to me a copy of your insurance policy that was in existence on the car at the time of this accident in February. Now, did you have your car fixed?
No, ma'am.
Why not?
I just haven't had it to pay for it yet. I'm still paying a car note. I just haven't had it to pay the damages.
Okay, this is what we're going to do, Ms. Wilcox. I believe that the defendant is responsible for your damage to your car. And either your out-of-pocket expenses are $500,
Yes, ma'am.
or they are $4,300. And I'm going to defer that judgment until you furnish me with the insurance policy that was in effect in February of 2004 when this accident happened. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, judgment for the plaintiff, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I did not hit her car. That's why my car had no damage.
She had a white car. My car is blue. I had white paint on my car. So how would she not have damage?
Miss Wilcox's hands were all up in the air, freaking out, yelling in road rage.
Mrs. Knight was totally upset that I got in front of her.
I just laughed and killed her with kindness.
She gave me the finger. She came back yelling.
I'm glad it's over with and done and taken care of.
Oh, God, it's just a lesson learned. I know there are crazy people out on the world that don't need to be driving, and I'm happy that justice was served today.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of DeLong versus Bryant, step forward, please.
Retail auditor Darlene Dottie DeLong is suing her ex-boyfriend, painting contractor John Bryant, for his share of the trip to North Carolina. John says he was out of work, so Dottie picked up the tab.
Mr. Long, Mr. Bryant and you were involved in a relationship, and according to your complaint, he wanted to travel from where the two of you were living to his hometown. There was some problem with his daughter and other things, but the problem was he didn't have any money. So you made an arrangement with him whereby you would put everything on your credit card and he would pay you back that money within a certain period of time. And he hasn't paid you back, and you're no longer involved in a relationship. Mr. Bryant said there was never a loan. He just wanted to go back to his hometown, meet his friends and family. There was never any agreement to reimburse you for any of the expenses. Is that right, sir?
That's true.
Okay. How long were you involved with Mr. Bryant before you decided to accompany him to his hometown?
Approximately a couple months.
Couple of months?
Couple of months.
You were not living together, you were just seeing him?
He stayed at the house and I stayed at his house.
And where were you living at the time?
In Indian River.
Indian River is where?
Michigan.
And where is your hometown, sir?
Afton, Michigan, just the next town over from Indian River.
So this is the trip that you made?
No, we went to North Carolina.
Oh, well, that's what I want to know. You went to North Carolina?
Yes.
From Michigan. And
Yes,
how
we
long
did.
did that take you?
We were gone for 4 days. The ride down's about a 13 to 14-hour ride.
When did you travel there?
A couple days before the Super Bowl.
What prompted you to go?
Her wanting to go down, meet my children, my friends. We were sitting in the bar one night. It was during the playoffs, and I would call my friends in North Carolina, and we'd root back and forth about how the Panthers were going to the Super Bowl. And she said, "Wouldn't it be nice if we went down and watched the game with your friends?" And you know, yeah, sure, it would be great, but I told her that I wasn't working, I didn't have the money, and I thought it would be ridiculous for us to do that because I couldn't afford it.
Why weren't you working?
It was wintertime in northern Michigan, and I'm a paint contractor, and things are real slow in the wintertime up there.
Okay. And she said what to you?
She said that she would love to pay for us to go down, do that for me, so we could see my kids, she could meet my kids and my family, my friends.
And that's what you did?
Yes, she was very
Okay.
persistent. Yeah.
Good.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
If a man wants to spend whatever money he doesn't have in buying drugs, that should have been your first clue that this
Exactly.
was not a good idea.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Dottie DeLong claims ex-boyfriend John Bryant owes for a trip to North Carolina. Dottie says John wanted to visit his troubled daughter.
Okay. Now I'll hear your version of the events, Mr. Long.
We went to North Carolina.
No, before you went to North Carolina.
I don't know what you want to know. We were dating and his daughter was in trouble.
Well, tell me about that.
Okay, his daughter was in trouble. He wanted to go see his daughter. She was going into a girl's home, running out in the middle of the night, sneaking in and out of her house.
Is that what he told you?
Yes, I have phone bills to prove he was
Okay.
calling there.
All right. So tell me about the trip to North Carolina.
We went to North Carolina. He left me at his friend's house, went over and visited his daughter a couple times. We went to the school to visit his daughter. And the other time we were at the Super Bowl party at his friend's house.
I didn't hear about any loan, madam.
I paid for all the gas on the way
Yes.
down on my credit cards, which I have the receipts of his signature.
Yes.
And he told me that if I paid for it, when he got back to work, he'd reimburse me.
When did you expect him to get back to work?
When the weather broke up there, March, April,
And when is the Super Bowl? I don't
January,
End of January.
end of January.
Sorry.
Just telling you.
I loaned him money, a $50 loan at one point. Not sure if you want me to tell you about that loan.
No, don't
It was
ask him.
drugs, so he could buy a bag of pot.
Yes.
He did reimburse me for that.
When did he reimburse?
He did reimburse me for that.
When?
Are you saying I'm lying? Are you saying I'm lying?
Ma'am,
Yes.
talk to the judge.
Thank you. Okay, so what you're telling me, Mr. Long, is When he borrowed money from you for marijuana, he paid you back.
Yes, he did.
So when he considers it a loan, he pays you back. Is that what you're telling me?
He gave me that back because I pursued it. He went to work a couple times and got paid. And I said, can I get some money from you for what you owe me? Because I have none. And he says, this is what I got that I can afford. I know I owe you more, but I can't give it to you right now.
When
and I
is
have
that?
witnesses to that.
Oh, I'll hear you witness. Step up. Tell me your name.
Brenda Santor.
And how are you related to these people?
Darlene is my cousin.
Okay. Tell me about where you were when you overheard Mr. Bryant acknowledging a debt to the plaintiff.
I was in her living room. He'd just gotten out of the shower. He was sitting in the chair, and he handed Darlene a $100 bill, said that this is part of the money that I owe you, that he was going to make good on the money for the trip.
I don't believe what you just said. Just a minute. I don't believe what you just said.
Well,
you're making that up as you're going.
No.
I believe that you may have seen him hand him 100. Listen to me, Brenda.
Ma'am?
I believe you when you said that you saw him hand her a $100 bill. That might make sense, that he got out of a shower and he handed her a $100 bill. I don't believe you when you said that you heard him say, I know that I owe you money for the trip and I'm going to give it back. Because somebody who just gets out of a shower and is sitting around in a towel doesn't talk about, here's $100 and I know I owe you more money for the trip and I'm going to pay you back. That's what you want me to believe you heard?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
When he was sitting in the chair in the living room, we were standing right there in the doorway. And when he handed Darlene the money, he said that he would make good on the money he owes her.
Oh, just a second. Just a second.
Well, the
just
money
a second.
that he owes her was for the trip. So.
Sit down.
Okay.
Anything else you want to tell me?
I have phone bills here that show that his daughter was in trouble, that he had made from my house.
So?
Why would I want to go to see his daughter in trouble?
No, I don't think you wanted to go and see his daughter who was in trouble. I think that you wanted to solidify your relationship and you wanted to go meet his friends. You knew he had no money, so you paid for the trip. Whatever the trip was, gas money, motel money. It was a social endeavor. You paid for it. You anticipated a long-term relationship. You didn't have one. Stop complaining. Write it off. It was a bad debt.
Your Honor?
What?
I'm the one that asked Jack to leave.
That may be, and you may have had good reason for that, madam, because if a man doesn't have any money and he wants to spend whatever money he doesn't have in buying drugs, that should have been your first clue that this was not a good idea. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Very good. I wouldn't have traveled with him from here to over where that light switch is, but you chose to do that, pay for it. It was a foolish thing to do. Don't do it again. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Veterinarian assistant Christopher Miller is suing his ex-girlfriend, 23-year-old cashier Jessica Welch, for having him falsely arrested for assault. Jessica claims Christopher bit her.
All rise. Yeah, this is case number 15 on the calendar in the matter of Miller versus Welch. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Have a seat, ma'am.
Mr. Miller, it is your claim that the defendant, who was living in your home, along with her mother and her child, filed false charges against you for domestic violence. You want to be compensated with the return of your bail and some additional amount of money to compensate you for what you went through. The defendant says that she filed for a protective order because the ultimate reason was you called her 3-year-old some bad names, right?
Yes.
How did she come to be in your house?
Ma'am, Jessica Welch and I had a relationship. Our relationship started the ending of September, beginning of October. She moved in, ma'am.
Why did she move in?
We had a relationship. I was physically attracted to her. We talked a lot, had a lot of things in common, ma'am. My wife moved out.
When did your wife move out?
About the end of September.
Okay, so your wife moved out in September. You began a relationship with the defendant, and when did she move in?
Beginning of October, ma'am.
Don't like to be alone?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Miller?
No, ma'am.
Are you living alone now?
No, ma'am. I'm back with my wife, and we're working things through.
Good. You still didn't tell me why she moved in.
She was living with her stepfather, ma'am, and I guess her stepfather was doing a lot of yelling. It was a bad environment for her son, CJ.
So that's why you allowed her to move in to your house, plus the fact that you liked her.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right so far, Miss Welch?
Yes.
You had been living previously with your mother?
My mother and stepfather, yes.
And they weren't getting along?
No.
Do you work?
Yes, I do.
Did you work then?
Yes.
What kind of work did you do?
I'm a clerk at a convenience store.
Full-time, part-time?
Full-time.
And your mother?
She works for a big satellite company.
Tell me about why you filed for a protective order against him.
There was an argument that Chris and I had.
When?
Right before Thanksgiving. It's the end of November.
Okay.
He had been drinking. He had argued with his wife on the telephone. He was promising to take her out for their anniversary. And being as they were separated, I didn't agree with that. We got into an argument about it. As I turned to walk away, he came after me. He ran after me and grabbed me and knocked me down to the floor.
Shh. Mr. Miller, I know you want to respond. You're going to have an opportunity to do that. Came from behind you.
He grabbed me from behind and knocked me down to the floor. I ended up went into the bathroom to cry because...
Well, what happened after he knocked you down to the floor?
After he knocked me down to the floor, he went back into the kitchen because my mother got into the middle of it. My mother watched and she separated us.
Were you arguing with each other?
Yes, we were.
Were you physical with him?
No, I wasn't. I turned and walked away from him.
Did you say anything to him?
No, I was like, I'm done. I just turned and walked away.
Okay. That was in November?
Yes. And then later that evening, we went to bed. I was putting blankets and pillows in between us so that we didn't touch while we were sleeping. And he leaned over and bit me on the left breast.
And where did you sleep that night?
I ended up sleeping on the floor that night.
And the night after?
The night after was back in the bed with him.
Well, what happened the next day?
The next day, he said he didn't remember. He had been drinking a lot. I tried to tell him what happened. He just blew me off and ignored me. He just did not remember.
Well, that's November. Did you stay together in December?
No. Monday after the incident occurred, I got a restraining order. And
you got a restraining order when?
I got a restraining order the end of November.
I'd like to see it, please. Now, one of my questions to you is, you moved into his home.
Yes.
You, in effect, had him kicked out of his own house. Why didn't you and your mother and your kid leave?
At that time, we didn't have any money because we paid off the rest of his deposit when he invited us to move in, and he added our names to the lease.
Mr. Miller, you
Yes,
added her name to the lease?
Yes, I did, ma'am.
That was very stupid.
Yes, it was, ma'am.
What was that Forrest Gump line, Bird? Stupid is as stupid does?
That's the one.
Right. Okay. Now, he wasn't arrested on this domestic violence charge. He was arrested for outstanding warrants that he had when you filed the complaint. What kind of warrants did you have, Mr. Miller?
Misdemeanor, ma'am. They were being intoxicated in public and in public.
You didn't learn not to drink, Mr. Miller?
Yes, ma'am. I go to classes now. Yes.
You should have gone to classes back in November.
I was doing that, actually.
Not successfully?
No, ma'am.
Okay. This case was ultimately dismissed.
Yes, ma'am.
Assault case was, yes.
How come, Miss Welch?
But because pretty much he got my boss, my ex-boss, and old co-worker to lie for him.
You mean this case was tried?
Wasn't tried after the prosecuting attorney talked to the witnesses he had. She didn't feel that it was necessary to move forward because if we went to jury, we wouldn't have got anywhere because it was an attack on my character.
But this is the case on which you base your complaint. Is that right, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Because she had you arrested not at the time of this incident before Thanksgiving, but she waited. Isn't that right, Miss Welch? Because when you called the police because he said bad things to your son. You had not gone to the police with regard to this incident where he pushed you and bit you, according to you. You did not go to the police until, according to you, he said some things to your son that you didn't like, and then you decided to go to the police and report the domestic violence. Isn't that what I read?
That's pretty much what you read, because if he's calling my son names...
Exactly. I just answered my question, my dear. It wasn't until after he called your son a name that you went to the police and complained about this incident that had happened days before. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now tell me about the incident involving your son.
We were sitting there. He'd been drinking the whole day again. My son was playing, And he called him stupid, called him retarded. And I know if he's calling my son names, he's going to hit my son next. He hit me. It ain't going to happen. Nobody's going to touch my son.
Well, he didn't touch him, did he?
No, he didn't. But if he has the audacity to call my son stupid and retarded, this is also the same man that has the audacity to assault a woman. He has the audacity to assault a child, too.
Why didn't you move?
I had nowhere to go. I don't have family in Idaho.
Well, listen to me. You know this man for a couple of months. This man isn't your life. You're there with your mother. Go to a shelter. I mean, why are you staying there? This isn't your husband. You don't have a child together. You don't have a life together. He had a house. You needed a place to stay. Mr. Miller says that you moved a friend into the house. Is that true?
No, I did not.
Did you have a friend come to stay with you for a period of time, Miss Welch?
I had...
Just look at me. Don't look at him. Look at me.
I had a friend stay for a couple of weeks.
And the friend's name?
His name is Tony.
Tony what? And how long do you know Tony?
I'd known him before Chris. I'd known him for about 5 months.
Where did you know him from?
From the same place I met Chris, work.
And why did you invite him to stay at a house?
He had just gotten out of jail. He came, he came and he needed a place to stay, so I let him stay.
Was Mr. Miller in agreement with that?
He said that first night that Tony stayed that yes, he was in agreement with it.
Yes, Mr. Miller.
Ma'am, she moved Tony in. I was not aware it was her ex-boyfriend.
Look at me. Don't look at her.
Sorry, ma'am. Sorry. Apologize. Ma'am, it was her ex-boyfriend. He came on the 12th, on Friday, when this assault supposedly was supposed to happen, ma'am. On the 14th, I came to her and asked, why is he still there? She told me he got a job, he will be moving out. On the 14th, it's when the cops came to arrest me, ma'am. When I was arrested, she got a restraining order as soon as I left the jail. I bailed out, ma'am. I was no longer welcome back to my home.
Where was Tony?
Living there, man, in my bedroom. And I do have a letter saying that...
Don't tell me a letter. I don't do letter.
Okay, ma'am, it's a letter from her to Tony. Sorry.
Oh, a letter from her?
To Tony.
That I'll see. Show this to the defendant, would you? What date did you write that?
It was February of this year.
Where were you living?
I was living in the house where I'm still currently residing, where Mr. Miller moved out of.
So you're still there?
Yes.
Can I have that note back, please? How come you're still there?
My mom and I are trying to save up enough money to find a new place to live. It's kind of hard. We're having a little trouble getting the money up.
So Tony's sort of helping you?
No, Tony's no longer around.
When did he leave?
Tony left, it had to be March this year. He wasn't living in the house. He had his own place, and I was going to move in with him, but I found out he's been hanging out with Mr. Miller, so I decided that was not the best.
You have a 3-year-old child?
Yes.
Why don't you grow up? Why don't you grow up?
I'm working on that.
You're not working hard enough. You keep picking losers, that's your business. If Mr. Miller is honest with himself, and right now he is probably clean and sober, he knows that he's not a winner. Is that a fair statement, Mr. Miller?
Yes, that is a very fair statement, ma'am.
And clearly Tony, who just got released from prison and needed a place to stay, is also not a winner. And you and your mother, who didn't have a place to stay, 2 adult women with jobs, who couldn't find a safe place to stay for their 3-year-old son and grandson, clearly are not winners. You better grow up.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And later today...
After 72 hours, it's not toxic.
Well, did your bird die within 72 hours?
It died immediately of him standing in the process.
Well, then what I'm telling you, madam, is you should have taken your animals out of the house.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Christopher Miller says ex-girlfriend Jessica Welch took out a false restraining order against him. Jessica claims Christopher physically abused her and verbally abused her young son.
Mr. Miller?
Yes, ma'am.
You probably don't remember what happened the night in November when things got a little tacky with Miss Welch. There isn't a question in my mind that she used you. There is also not a question in my mind that the reason you called the police, Miss Welch, is that you wanted him out of the house so that Tony could be there unencumbered. Not that he called your son stupid, but that he had already told you. Tony was going. And Tony didn't go. Tony stayed, according to you, for 2 weeks after he was out of the house. At least 2 weeks. So I think you had an ulterior motive for calling the police on him and having him arrested and having him removed from his house. Mr. Miller, I think that your conduct in getting sloshed and not acting appropriately didn't help things. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
But I don't think that Miss Welch filed for a protective order because she was legitimately afraid of you, which is the only reason that you filed for a protective order. Not for another reason, not because you want an apartment, you want a house, you want him out so that you could bring another boyfriend. And those aren't legitimate reasons for filing for a protective order because you've sworn in your application for a protective order that you are in fear. And you weren't in fear. You were only in fear if the 2 men stayed in the house with you at the same time. So, Mr. Miller, I think that you behaved probably a little bit badly, but certainly that was not the reason that you called the police. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of bail, $1,000, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Her boss, her co-worker, and her ex-boyfriend was on my side, too.
He wins again.
Even the good guys win at times.
I have a good heart and I'm a good person.
Jazz Judy's the bomb.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Lubbock versus Nunez, step forward, please.
Real estate agent Donna Levick is suing business owner Jack Nunez for the cost to replace 3 parrots. Donna says the birds died after Jack sanded her floors.
Miss Levick, how old are you?
35.
What do you do for a living?
I sell real estate.
How long have you been a real estate agent?
Almost 4 years.
Do you have any college degrees behind you?
No degrees, but I have 2 years of junior college.
And your husband?
He's a deputy sheriff.
You have ongoing training?
Yes, ma'am.
And you, sir, what do you do for a living?
I'm a tile contractor
How long have you been doing that?
since '73.
Okay, now let's get to the case. Miss Levick, you had 3 parrots. How long had you had them?
My oldest African gray I had for approximately 15, 16 years.
And what's their life expectancy?
40 to 60 years.
And the other 2?
My severe macaw I had for about 3.5 years, and also for my Timna.
And this is what the lawsuit is about. You hired Mr. Nunez to come in and sand your floors in your house and seal them. And he did that.
Correct.
And your parrots died.
Correct.
So you want him to pay for your parrots, their vet bills, the casket, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
What did you do in preparation to your house to have your floors sanded?
We didn't do anything. We just took the birds outside.
When you sand floors, what comes up?
Generally dust, but he was using a wet sander, so you don't see dust particles flying all over.
So you're telling me there wasn't any dust in your house?
My birds, I had taken them outside.
I'm not asking you about your birds now. I'm just asking you generally.
Oh.
When you sand floors, there's usually
Dust.
dust. You don't have to be a college graduate to figure that out. 35-year-old real estate agent with 2 years of college could figure that out, that you have dust. And when you seal the floors after the sanding, they seal it with?
Chemicals.
And the chemicals usually?
Toxic.
Don't know toxic, but they usually smell.
Yes.
And they do have places where you can board animals while you're doing things in the house, just as if you were going away. Who are you?
I'm Donna's mother, and I was.
Do you
there.
live with them?
No, I don't.
You have your own house?
Yes, I do.
Could have taken your birds to your mother's house.
Yes.
You chose to keep your birds home. One, I understand from your complaint, died outside. 2 of them, however, died in the house. That's your fault. That's not his fault. If you had a baby, do you have children?
I do, and she was also in the house. Oh,
Well, then
we were
that is
outside.
something clearly wrong
We
with
were
you.
outside when this happened. We had gone outside, and they opened the windows. My birds were on the patio outside of what we thought was harm's way. He never told us that there'd be a toxic gas. You could not smell the dust. You couldn't see the dust in the air.
Why were you outside?
Because it was a nice day, and we were trying to stay out of their way.
Well, if that's the only reason that you were staying outside, I'm glad your child is well. You have to accept responsibility. This was your fault. Not his fault, because if you're having somebody come in and whip up dust, whether they use a wet process or a dry process, it whips up dust. When you seal it, it stinks.
It was already sealed, and we went to the
Now,
manufacturers.
listen.
After 72 hours, it's not toxic.
Well, did your bird die within 72 hours?
It died immediately of him sanding the process.
Well, then what I'm telling you, madam, is you should have taken your animals out of the house. That's your responsibility. And if you didn't take them far enough away from the house, that's your responsibility. That's not
It's
Mr.
his responsibility
Nunez's
to tell me the
responsibility.
dangers
Miss
of-
Lovick, it's harder to accept responsibility for the death of your birds than it is to blame it on somebody else. Life starts with accepting responsibility. It's your fault.
I tried to expect responsibility for the death of my birds. I only asked for him to pay the vet bill. There's
Just a
no way.
second, if you accept responsibility...
He agreed to pay my
I'm
vet bill.
speaking. If you accept responsibility for the death of your birds, he doesn't pay anything.
He never once mentioned that there was a toxic chemical or gas that could be released from sanding our floors. The birds were outside. They opened the windows, and that's what exposed the birds to the fumes and the silica.
Miss Lovick, accept responsibility. It's your fault. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step up.
Sandwich store manager Craig Barr is suing his former employee, 22-year-old Nick Baum, for punching him in the mouth at work. Craig says the assault took place in the middle of the lunch rush.
All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. Quiet in the courtroom, please. Yeah, this is case number 145 on the calendar in the matter of Barr versus Baum.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Mr. Barr, you and the defendant worked together, and according to your complaint, you had an argument with him, and during the course of that argument, he assaulted you, he punched you. You want to be compensated.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Baum said it is true that you did have an argument. However, you were the one who was the first to use your hands, and he just reacted. So he was really acting in self-defense, which is your claim.
Yes.
How old are you?
20.
And you, sir?
28.
Where do you work?
For a sub shop.
How long have you worked there?
4 months. At this particular restaurant.
How long have you worked for the company?
3 years.
And you manage this restaurant?
Yes, ma'am. General manager.
And Mr. Baum, how long did you work at this particular restaurant?
Worked there for about 2 months.
2 months.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Barr was your boss?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of work did you do there?
Sandwich artist. Sandwich artist.
Sandwich artist?
I made the sandwiches.
Sandwich artist. When did this argument take place?
5/22 of this year.
What time?
I'd say about 1:30.
1:30 is lunchtime, so you must have been busy.
Real busy.
Real busy. So tell me what happened, Mr. Barr.
Being the manager, I usually generally don't work on the weekends, but seeing as I had hired...
Listen to me. What I want you to do is, I want you to look at me when you're testifying. I don't want you to look over there. I don't want you to look over there. I don't want you to look. I don't want you to look. I want you to look at me, and I want you to answer my question, which is, what happened on May 22nd, 2004, at approximately 1:30 in the afternoon?
I went back to the restaurant, and I made a beeline toward Chris, which was a new employee.
You went back to the restaurant, which I assume meant that you left the restaurant at some point.
Yes.
When had you arrived at the restaurant?
Open, 8 o'clock in the morning.
And what time did you leave?
About 10:30 to go make the bank deposit for the earnings for the day before.
And what time did you return?
About 12:30.
Took you 2 hours to make a deposit?
I was doing personal matters. I wasn't scheduled to work that day.
Okay. So you got back at 12:30. And when you got back at 12:30, what happened?
I had asked Chris how the day was going. It was his first day. I'd asked him how...
First day?
As working as an employee for the store.
You're Chris?
Yes, ma'am.
Step up. So you said to Chris, that's you, raise your hand. You said to Chris, who was a new employee?
Mm-hmm.
This gentleman was a new employee. You said, how are things going?
Exactly. How you liking it? Are you picking things up? Is Nick and the other girl showing you stuff?
Okay. And Chris said?
Nothing positive toward Nick. They're not getting along. Nick's telling me he's not doing stuff right. He's ready to walk out.
You mean Chris is ready to leave?
Chris is ready to walk out. Nick's having an attitude. And earlier that morning, I observed Nick having an attitude toward customers. I knew there was something on his chest. I figured it would just shake it off as the day went on. But obviously it didn't. It progressed.
So what happened next?
I asked the other girl who was working there what has she seen? Well, what's going on?
I don't want you to tell me what she said.
Exactly. Well, anyway, I asked another staff member what they thought of the situation. They shook their head, walked away. They didn't want no part of any of the nonsense. I had then started to walk up to the register. I noticed that Nick was being rudely toward an elderly lady. He was cashing out. I asked Nick
what was he saying to her?
Just the tone in the voice, not a typical friendly restaurant attitude that you'd want someone to have at this particular establishment. We up-talk friendly, courteous, smile.
So he was being short?
To say the least.
Okay. Well, I have to envision what you're saying, sir, because you're not being more articulate. You want to try to explain better what you observed with regard to this elderly
Just
woman?
his body language and his tone of his voice.
Okay. So, what happened next?
I asked him to leave the restaurant. I said, Nick, please leave. Get out. I wasn't firing him. I just wanted him out the restaurant that day. Obviously, there was something bothering him that day. He was causing friction among the other staff members. He was also being short with the customers, having an attitude. I thought it was the best business decision for the establishment to remove Nick from operations that particular day.
And at that time, he had been working for the place for about 4 months?
Yes, ma'am.
And had you had trouble with him before?
No.
So this was an unusual occurrence?
That's what I was telling you. Something was obviously bothering that day.
Okay, good. So you told him to leave. Good
Exactly.
idea. What happened?
I continued to cash somebody out. Just as I closed the cash register door, I turned my back, he punches me in the mouth. Didn't see it coming. It was over my shoulder. It was a sucker punch. He drilled me in the mouth pretty hard. He began to start to swing other hands at me. I was able to block him. Eventually, somehow we got into a stance, wrestled. My first instance was to get him away from the glass, away from the knives, away from the customers, because meanwhile, the line's out the door. There's all these people in the establishment, and this is what they're seeing. They're seeing Nick attacking the manager. I got Nick out into the lobby. I led up. As I led him up, I had blood going down. I went like this, tried to get my bearings straight. What's going on? Why am I bleeding? And next thing you know, Nick and Chris were running down the street like two little girls.
Okay.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
What happened after you pushed him in the back?
He turned around and scratched me like a girl.
Well, didn't you report it to the police, sir?
I'm a felon. I'm not going to get arrested for someone fighting with me.
What kind of felony?
2 criminal mischief and 2 grand theft.
And later today,
You say, because she breached the agreement, I should be able to use these songs for my own purposes in the future.
He can't do that. That's my melody.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Sandwich store manager Craig Barr says former employee Nick Baum punched him in the mouth at work. Nick says Craig slapped his hand.
What kind of injury did you suffer, Mr. Barr?
I was treated at the emergency room for 4 stitches inside and outside of my lip. It seems to be that when he hit me, my teeth went through my bottom lip.
You had 4 stitches.
4 stitches, and I need to go back for plastic laser surgery once all the scar tissue settles, and then they can see exactly how they can make this to be not a permanent injury.
Okay, who is this?
This is a witness. Her name's Shannon. She was there that day.
All right, Mr. Baum, I'd like you can sit down. I'd like you to tell me your version of the events. You were having a bad day. Why were you having a bad day, Mr. Baum?
Because Christopher Struss was not up to date on his job. He wasn't doing it properly.
But he was a new employee, Mr. Baum.
I know, that's the whole thing. You know, friends can't work together.
So he was your friend?
Yes, we are friends. Before that, the whole thing, we had picked him up from Port Charlotte to bring him in.
So you got him the job?
It was his idea for the job.
But he didn't know Chris, did he?
Yes, he did.
You knew Chris from before?
I knew him from the streets.
You told him about Chris?
Exactly.
Well, I didn't tell him that he needed a job. He come over to stay the weekend.
At your house?
At his house. I was living with him.
Oh.
That's not necessarily true, Your Honor.
Yes, it is.
Just a second. Mr. Baum was living at your house?
I wouldn't say that. He was staying there. He was kicked out of his previous residence for his hostile attitude toward the people he was staying with.
Okay. Just a minute.
And
he was staying at your house?
I guess so.
I still have his house key.
Take your hands out of your pockets. He was staying at your house, and Chris was staying at your house?
He had asked to stay for the weekend.
Okay, fine. So now he's back at the shop, Mr. Baum. So now tell me what happened with Mr. Barr.
When he had come in, me and Christopher confronted him about what we were talking about, him not doing his job right. He didn't want to hear it. He ignored it. He walked straight up and down the line. Then come to me while I'm proceeding to help a customer. Not no old woman, a gentleman. He then smacked my hand, pushed in front of me, told me to get the hell out.
How did he do that, sir?
I'm standing here at
just
the
a second.
register.
Chris, stand up over there. You're standing next to the register.
Say this is me. This is me. He's on the register, helping a customer.
No. Who's on the register?
Myself.
You're on the register.
Say he's me.
He's playing you.
Yes.
Listen to me. He's you. He's at the register now.
And I'm Mr. Barr.
And you're Mr. Barr. So make like you're at the register.
He come up, smack my hand.
Oh, show me how he did that. Okay, he pushed your hand away.
No, he hit it. He hit it hard with force.
And he said, get out. He didn't ask him.
I didn't ask you anything. You went like this. Pushed your hand up.
And then squeezed in front of me between the register as I'm helping.
Okay. And then what happened, sir?
I pushed him, stepped back.
How did you put? No, show me how you pushed him. Okay, so you pushed him from the back.
And then.
And the shot. I did. Do you hear? I didn't ask you a thing. And then what happened after you pushed him in the back?
He turned around and scratched me like a girl.
How did he scratch you?
From the left top corner of my forehead across to my bottom right eye.
With his nails?
Nails and all. I still got a faint scar.
Well, didn't you report it to the police, sir?
Nope.
Why not?
So I'm a felon. I'm not going to get arrested for someone fighting with me.
What do you mean you're a felon?
I have felony on my record.
What kind of felony?
4 felonies of 3rd degree, 2 criminal mischief, and 2 grand theft.
Criminal mischief is usually not a felony, sir.
When its damages consisted over $500.
What kind of damages, sir?
Damages of property.
And you left?
I left. After.
Weren't
But now, see, we're skipping a large part here. After he scratched me, I then hit him. He fell down. He's like, oh, we're supposed to be boys. I then went to walk out. He grabbed me by my leg. I fell over. He tried to get on top of me. I threw him on the wall and walked out.
Do we have any photographs, sir, of the damage to your lip?
I got photographs and all the necessary paperwork. I also have a claim number from the Largo Police Department. They wouldn't release the actual police report because they're a little slow in their paperwork and it's not public record yet. Your Honor, just for the record.
Step up, madam. Tell me your name.
I'm Shannon Levantia.
Levantia?
17-year-old girlfriend. I apologize.
Miss Levantia, what capacity you were at the restaurant on the 22nd of May, 2004?
I was there getting a sandwich.
Tell me what happened with regard to any hitting, slapping.
All that I had seen was Nicholas hit Craig. I didn't see Craig swing on Nick at all. Then they wrestled out into the lobby, and that's all I had seen.
Is it possible, Nick, that you were disrespectful or less than courteous towards customers on that day?
We had 20 customers in that line.
I'm just asking you a question.
I was being straightforward with them to get them in and out. I was not trying to spend any time with them. I was not in any way uncourteous
listen
with
to
them.
me very carefully, sir. I didn't ask you for excuses. I said, is it possible that you were being less than courteous to the customers who were there?
Not with the customers, no.
Okay. When was your last arrest, Nick?
November 23rd, 2002.
Did you spend any time in jail?
9 months.
When did you get out?
It was actually 215 days. That'd be June 26, 2003.
And when did you go to work for Mr. Barr?
I can't recall what the actual date was.
What date did he start working for you?
Middle of April. He had worked at another restaurant.
How long do you know him, Mr. Barr?
From the original store.
Only from the original store through business?
Yes, ma'am.
So you gave him an opportunity?
I gave him a second chance to come back into the company.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And what happened at your last job, Nick?
I walked out on him.
Why?
I didn't like his work, and I was paid too little.
And despite that, Mr. Barr gave you another opportunity to...
More money, yeah.
So he evidently liked you.
Yeah, because I was good at what I did.
So I'm trying to think of why Mr. Barr, who was a perfectly nice guy,
No.
who gave you to you.
No, he wasn't. Not exactly.
He wasn't. Well, according to you, he was.
There was a lot of confrontations up to the point where I wound up living with him.
You say goodbye. You're a big guy. You spend 9 months in prison. You know what it's like to have to fend off people and take care of yourself and be responsible for your own safety, right? You know all about that. So if somebody is being not nice to you, big boy, pack up and you leave. You chose not to do that, so I don't want to hear that Mr. Barr
That choice was not an option until the end. There was no real...
What do you mean a choice was not an option? You mean you were an indentured servant?
That's not
We
what
don't
I'm
have
trying to
indentured
say.
servitude in this country anymore, sir. You have free will, which means if somebody isn't nice to you, you leave. Nick, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I believe that maybe he knocked your hand off the cash register. That doesn't justify punching him in the face, causing him to have 4 stitches and a permanent scar on his lip, which are reflected in here. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,500. That's all. Step out. Step out.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
No comment.
I wasn't really at fault. He put his hands on me. What can I say? You know, if I knew it was going to be like this, I would have hit him more than once.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Jones versus Dunson. Step forward, please.
School teacher Cheryl Jones is suing studio owner David Dunson for a refund for a children's recording session. Cheryl says David never finished the job.
Looks like we got a lot of show and tell here, but let me see if I can simplify this. Miss Jones, you hired Mr. Dunston for the agreed-upon price of $1,000.
Correct.
To create musical arrangements for children's songs and to use his recording studio in order to record those songs.
Right.
You paid him, according to you, a total of $650.
Right.
Towards the $1,000. Those songs, according to you, that were never completed because he kept moving the studios. Mr. Dunston says that he wants to be able to use that music because he's never been fully paid. Is that right?
Correct.
You say, well, I paid him $650 and I can't use the music and record it because he has the copyright.
We
right?
agreed upon $650 as the agreement. We changed the agreement because he continued to move and he wasn't doing a professional job. So $650 was the new agreement just to use the tracks.
Well, but what you're suing for here before me is your $650 back.
Right.
You want your money back because you didn't get what you bargained for, right?
That's correct.
He wants to be able to record the music because he's copyrighted it already, correct?
I did not.
No.
You've copyrighted the music already.
They're copywritten through my machine when she comes in.
I don't care whether they're copywritten through a machine. She can't do it without your permission, and you have already executed something through a machine so that you have this music copyrighted, according to you.
No, Your Honor.
You don't have copyrights to the music?
No, there's no copyrights with the Congress. The copyrights is when she comes into the studio and it records the date and time when she comes in and recorded her music. It copyrights it then. And then when we finish the song, she takes it and we sign the agreement for her personally, exclusively to use the copyrights.
Have you done that yet?
No, ma'am.
Good. Do you want to record this music for any other purpose? According to you, you do.
Yes.
You say...
those are
shut up!
I'm sorry.
You say, because she breached the agreement, I should be able to use these songs for my own purposes in the future.
Yes, ma'am.
He can't do that. That's my melody.
Well,
he cannot use that with my melody. I sang those songs to him. He created the music around me singing it. That's my melody. He can't use that.
You're suing him for $650 back. I'm going to give you your $650 back. You didn't get what you bargained for. That's all I have to do. Do you understand that, sir? She didn't get what she bargained for. You have to give her back her money. Now, whether you can use these songs or she can use these songs, I don't have to deal with it. She's suing for $650, and you didn't give her a complete track of children's music.
I gave her all 12, Your Honor.
And she's... No. You say here she breached the agreement, and I should be able to use those songs if I want to. Maybe you can, and maybe you can't. I don't have to go there. That's what you say in your defense, sir. So she gets her $650 back. You can hum, he can hum, and I can go home. Thank you very much.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Maintenance supervisor David Diekema is suing his stepson, 21-year-old cook Kirk Smith, for unpaid loans to help with his legal troubles. Kirk says he paid him back by mowing the lawn.
Come to order, all rise. Quiet, please. Thank you. Your Honor, this is case number 125 on the calendar in the matter of Dikema versus Smith. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Ladies, have seats, please.
Mr. Dikema, this young man is your stepson.
Yes.
I assume that this is your son. Is that right?
Yes.
How old are you?
21.
What's your first name?
Kirk.
According to you, you loaned Kirk some money. He got himself into some trouble.
Yes.
A couple of times. And you bailed him out.
Correct.
He hasn't paid you back, and he promised he would.
Correct.
The first thing Kirk says is that he did borrow the money from you, and in exchange for the money, he said he would mow your lawn for the summer, which he did.
Yes.
That was the payback.
Yes.
Right? That was his first excuse. The second excuse is that his mother told him he didn't have to pay you back. Right?
Correct.
And I can take my choice, one from column A or column B, depending upon how
Well,
it
they're
feels.
for separate things.
What was the first loan for, Mr. Dikema?
Initially, the one where he was going to mow our lawn was we bailed him out of jail, and he was going to repay us, but he couldn't, and he was going to mow our lawn for us to help to repay that loan. And he did mow our lawn one time.
I mowed the lawn more than once.
Shh, don't answer.
Sorry.
Was he living with you at the time?
No, ma'am, he was not.
Was not. All right, well, tell me about this bailing him out of jail. Tell me about it.
That time was in February of 2003, and the bail was $325.
What was your offense, Kirk?
Driving on a suspended license.
What was the license suspended for?
It was suspended for an MIP.
What's an MIP?
Is a minor in possession.
Minor in possession of what?
Alcohol.
Okay. Is that the first time your license was suspended?
No, it isn't.
What was it suspended for prior to that?
For MIPs, a minor in possession of alcohol a couple times, and then for driving on a suspended while suspended.
Been arrested for anything else?
I've been arrested for, when I was a minor, for doing a gas and go.
You know, I've been a judge for a very long time. I'm pretty familiar with the penal law. I never heard of a gas and go.
Well, I went to a gas station and I stole gas, and then I left without paying for it.
So you stole gas?
Yes.
Safe to say, Kirk, you don't abide by the rules.
I try to. I've made some poor mistakes.
You've made a lot of mistakes?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So, $325 was the first bail.
Yes.
And is that what he was supposed to pay back by mowing the lawn?
Yes.
And how many times do you say you mowed the lawn?
I mowed it at least a couple of times, and plus
At least a couple.
Well, it was for more than just the 300. It was for my probation fines that were also with that, and plus for another fee that I'd gotten for counseling.
Fine. $325, and what were the probation fines?
I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was somewhere around $280.
Okay, $280.
And then the counseling classes were about $350.
$955. Okay. So, right?
That's right.
So, stepfather says you mowed the lawn once. You say I mowed the lawn at least a couple of times. So what you're telling me is, how much property do you have, Mr. Dikema?
It's approximately half an acre.
So you think that you're worth almost $500 a mow for half an acre? Kirk, is that what you're telling me? Doesn't that sound stupid to you?
It does sound stupid.
It sounds, it does sound stupid. Well, I'm glad you at least say it does sound stupid. Because according to your stepfather, let's say you took your stepfather's figure of $325, and if you mowed the lawn twice, according to you, that's $160 a mow. That's even high for half an acre, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
But it's not $500 a mow for half an acre. So you see, what I'm trying to get across to you, Kirk, is if you think that you're going to second-guess the answers to these questions, don't do it.
I'm not just second-guessing.
Yes, you are, sir. Okay. Because I just made you look very foolish, which wasn't your intention, I assume.
No.
Is this your girlfriend?
Yes.
So I assume you don't want to look like a fool in front of your girlfriend.
No.
Did he just look foolish?
I suppose.
You wouldn't think he's worth $500 to mow half an acre, would you?
I don't have a half an acre.
You know what half an acre looks like?
Yes.
You think that that's a lot of money to mow half an acre?
Yeah.
Yeah, unless he cuts it with the tweezers. When he only mowed the lawn once, did you say to him, hey, Kirk, the deal was you're supposed to mow the lawn for the summer?
I never see him, so, I mean, I came home from work, the lawn was mowed, and that was it. And he rarely ever talks to me. We never have contact, and he hasn't spoken to me in quite some time. So, no, I did not get the opportunity to do that.
Step up. What about you? Did you call your son and say to your son you were supposed to come over and mow the lawn?
That was originally for the $325. He had made a payment of like $100, I think, originally on that.
You gave him $100?
Yes.
Kirk, when you make a partial payment, that's evidence of a loan. Do you know that? I just taught you a piece of law. What's next?
For the next time, we had to pay court fines and court fees of, well, there were several. There was $918 to the 59th District Court. There was $200.
What is that? Was that for?
That was, he was either going to go to jail or we paid $918 to keep him out of jail.
Was that a different time, Kirk?
It was for the driving unsuspended.
Well,
That's
you
the
had
only violation
several
they bailed me out of jail for.
You had several of those, according to you.
Yes, I have had several, but that was the only one that they've bailed me out of jail for, the only time they've bailed me out of jail for anything.
Well, that's $918
and I'm
was court
deeply
costs.
under the impression, because in Zealand, the police I had got pulled over, and a police officer said that I was told on by Mr. and Mrs. Bell for driving on a suspended license. And so I was under the impression that my mother is the one who's told on me for driving on a suspended and got me the bail fines, and I've been under the impression that she bailed me out of feeling sorry. And it's not something I've brought up to her because, you know, I don't...
Just a minute. So what you think is that your mother notified the police that you were driving on I'm speaking.
Yes, ma'am.
That you were driving on a suspended license because you were driving on a suspended license for the second time. And that you believe that the reason she bailed you out of jail was because she felt guilty about having told the police that you were breaking the law. Is that what you're telling me? I just want to make sure that that's what you're telling me.
Yes, Your Honor, but...
All right.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Sorry, I mistakenly said the wrong person.
You make a lot of mistakes, Kirk.
Yeah, I do.
Where are you working now?
I work at the New Holland Brewery.
Oh.
And later today...
Was she with her husband or not with her husband?
Yes, for a few months, I guess, before he went to prison.
What'd they do, let you out by mistake?
Yes.
It's not a mistake now, is it?
No.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. David Diekema says his stepson, Kirk Smith, owes for loans to bail him out of jail. Kirk says his mother forgave the loan.
How much did you lend him altogether?
Altogether, it was $3,476.
And how much did he pay back?
$1,150.
Okay, Kirk, you got 30 seconds to convince me that you don't owe your stepfather $2,326. And your time starts right now.
Well, I feel that, you know...
Forget mowing the lawn.
I've forgotten about it. They haven't been, you know, done much for me, and this time that they helped me out, they told me, it wasn't my mom that told me I didn't have to pick it, it was Dave. He said, you know, don't worry about it, right? You know, get yourself on track and all that kind of stuff. And that is why I feel that I don't owe that.
I did tell him at one time that he did not have to worry about making timely payments because he could not make the payments, and that it was okay if we stretched it out beyond the original time that we set up, he and I agreed upon.
Which was what time?
We agreed upon 1 year to pay this money back, and so there were several times where he could not make any payments to me, and I said that that was okay, we'll just stretch the loan out longer, but that did not mean that he did not have to pay that.
You did not
back.
forgive the loan, you just gave him additional time to pay it.
That is correct.
Did you ever tell your son he didn't have to pay back the money?
No. No, it was Dave that told me that.
Well, that's not what you say in your answer. In your answer you say it was your mother.
Well, because earlier you asked me and you said that my mom told me it was Dave, and sorry, I mistakenly said the wrong person. I'm correcting myself now. It was Dave that had told me that, and he did say that.
You make a lot of mistakes, Kirk.
Yeah, I do.
Where are you working now?
I work at the New Holland Brewery.
Oh. Yeah, all these people think that that's very funny. I mean, it's rude of them, but there is a certain honesty about it that is inescapable. You owe your stepfather $2,326. Take care of your responsibilities. You're 21 years old?
Yes.
Stop making mistakes. You're getting too old to make mistakes. You know, and I would suggest that you stop making mistakes too. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I would like to see us move forward and be able to look beyond this.
I've never really, gotten to know him to begin with.
Hopefully everybody can learn that this was a lesson and forgive.
The police officer in Zealand had told me that somebody had called the cops and he made inclination on who it was.
Just hope he learns from it, that's all.
I can't really say there's been much of a relationship to begin with, so.
I hope that we can have a relationship in the future.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Landers versus Lowry. Step forward.
Forklift operator Darrell Landers is suing his ex-neighbor, Rochelle Lowry, for an unpaid loan for tires and lost wages. Rochelle is countersuing for assault and harassment.
Mr. Landers, it is your claim that you made a loan to the defendant during the time when she was separated from her husband. I assume this is your husband?
Yes, ma'am.
The loan was for tires for her car. You want that money back.
Yes.
You say that you gave her other monies, you paid for other things during the course of your brief relationship. You don't want that money back because that was a gift, but the tires clearly a loan.
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Lowry says that the tires as well were a gift from you. There was never any discussion of repayment for the tires. And she has a counterclaim because she says that you became both abusive and assaultive when she reconciled with her husband. And she has a whole litany of things that you allegedly did to her. How did you meet her?
Met her, she moved into an apartment. It was a fourplex. She moved into an apartment right below, not right below me, but kitty corner below me.
Okay.
So they lived
and
there
when she moved into the apartment complex, was she with her husband or not with her husband?
Yes, for a few months, I guess, before he went to prison.
And when did he go to prison?
Imagine a year ago. Not sure the
Give me
exact
the
date.
month. When did he go to prison?
April.
April of 2003?
Yes, ma'am.
And how long was he incarcerated?
He got out of prison, was it April this year?
January 8th.
And when did you begin a relationship with Miss Lowry?
Sometime around June of
A couple of months later.
2003, I guess, yes, ma'am.
Tell me how that started.
We just wound up, working in the yard together and all that, gardening and all that. I helped her out with some, stuff she needed done, and just wound up. She was going to get divorced because he was gone for 5 years. And
when was the loan for tires?
her mother-in-law's car broke down about 30 miles from the residence.
Mother-in-law's, did you say?
Yes. The tires were so bad, one was blown completely and the other one had treads sticking out of it.
Okay. When was that, sir?
February of 2004.
Well, you got out of jail in January, you said. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you go home?
I was back in jail. I think it was January
Okay, so you were back in jail?
17th, yes.
What did they do, let you out by mistake?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor, they did.
It's not a mistake now, is it?
No.
Okay, so she's on her way back from someplace. So what happened?
The next day, me and her stepfather went to go retrieve the car, so I put a spare on it, drove it with the one, real bald tire, about 5 miles to a tires place, put tires on it, drove it back home.
What did she say to you and what did you say to her that caused you to go back with her relative to get the car?
That she would pay me if I bought the tire. She would pay me as soon as she got her check, which is on the 3rd, and this was like February 29th, so I said, okay. So I charged it on my charge card. And then when it came time to pay me, she skipped town.
How much were the tires?
$107, I believe. I have the receipt right here in my credit card statement.
Can I see them, please?
Yes. I have pictures of the car also if you want to see it with the tires.
No.
Okay.
Well, but you're suing her for much more than that, sir.
It was for, I was told I could do it for wages for the days I missed for going to court, my day's wages.
No, you can't.
Okay, so then I guess you have to drop the day's wages.
$107.08. Okay, so I'll hear you.
Your Honor, Darrell did buy the tires for my mother-in-law's car. There was never no agreement on paying him back.
How did he get to the car in the first place?
With my stepfather.
And that was in February?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember it was the beginning of February or the end of February?
It was towards the end of February.
And when did your husband get out of prison? After they put him back and then
He got out at the end of March, beginning of April.
And where's the car now?
It's my mother-in-law's car. It's in the home with her in Wisconsin.
You don't drive it?
No, ma'am.
Were you driving it then in February?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were driving it in March?
The first part of March, yes.
Now tell me about your counterclaim.
I'm countersuing him for the damage he did to my house, to the apartment that I rented. I did not get my deposit back, part of my deposit. I moved simply because of the fact that he was harassing me, stalking my daughter. I have a 22-month-old baby. Your Honor, I have pictures. I had a garden in the backyard. He dug up all my flowers. He dug up my rose bushes.
Did you see him do that?
Yes. He also kicked in my front door.
Just a second. Let's start. Did you dig up a garden?
No, ma'am.
Did you have to pay for that?
I paid for the flowers, not the part that he dug it up. No.
Okay. What else?
I don't know if he punched or kicked. I was inside of my living room, my front door. It was a big hole this size. I didn't get half my deposit back because of that.
When?
Also. That's right before I moved, the end of February.
Tell me about it.
I was inside of my house. This happened every day, Your Honor. He would call me.
Just tell me what happened at the end of February.
I was inside of my house with my daughter, and he was banging on the door and banging on the door. Let me in, you owe me money.
Oh, just let me in, you owe me money.
Can I say it on TV?
Shh, just a second. Let me in, you owe me money.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you say to him?
I said, Daryl, you're drinking. You're not coming in my house. No. Quit calling me. Quit coming over here.
So he wanted his money.
Mm-hmm.
And you already told him that you weren't going to see him anymore.
I told him to stay away from the house, yes.
Okay.
I was very scared of him.
Okay. When did you start to get scared of him?
After I seen through him, my husband kept warning me.
Just a second. When did you start to get scared of him?
Very scared of him?
No, let's say a little bit scared of him.
The beginning of the year.
Beginning of January?
Before he even bought the tires.
So why did you let him buy the tires?
I didn't have any other choice. I was a single mom. I was sick. I had no money.
Why'd you get a job?
I'm disabled, Your Honor.
What's the matter with you?
I have Wegener's vasculitis.
What does that mean?
It's like a form of cancer. It attacks my heart, my lungs, and my kidneys.
And when were you diagnosed with that
1994.
illness? It seems to me you can do everything else except work. You can have a husband, you can have a house, you can take care of your house, you can take care of a garden, you can drive all over Wisconsin. What you can't do is work. That's peculiar. He wants $107 for the tires. You went back to your husband. Give him the $107. Okay? You got it? Good. Counterclaim's dismissed. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Real estate investor Nicole Han Hamilton is suing her stepson, 22-year-old barback Jason Hamilton, for loans to retain an attorney and to pay restitution. Nicole says Jason was arrested for stalking his ex-girlfriend.
Your Honor, this is case number 28 on the calendar in the matter of Hamilton versus Hamilton. You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated, sir. Have a seat, please.
Mrs. Hamilton, this is your stepson. Is this your husband?
Yes.
Oh, a little background. I gather from your complaint and your answer that you were divorced.
Yes, ma'am.
From his mother. You can step up here, sir. And for most of his life, you'd had very little contact.
That's correct.
More recently, you contacted him or you contacted your father. Which way?
I contacted him.
Son contacted you, and you began to build a relationship. Now, Jason has had a troubled adolescence. Is that a fair statement, Jason?
Yeah.
And it is your claim, Mrs. Hamilton, that your funds were used to help Jason out when he got us into some trouble with the law.
Yes.
For an attorney, for restitution payments, and at that time he was in fact living with you. He comes to live with you. Jason says that the lawyer was your idea. He was perfectly happy with the public defender, and that the restitution he has paid for by working it off while he was living with you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with you, Jason. How old are you?
22.
What were you in trouble for, Jason?
Aggravated harassment and stalking in the fourth from my ex-girlfriend.
Okay, so let me hear about the first loan that you claim for his lawyer.
When we bailed Jason out on September 18th of last year, Jason was not happy with his public defender at all. He verbalized this to both my husband and myself.
What did he say?
He said he didn't feel that he was going to fight for him. He just wanted, he felt that the public defender just wanted him to plea out to anything and get the case over and done with as quickly as possible. And Jason did not want to do that. He wanted to fight it. He didn't want to be charged, and he didn't want to violate his parole from his previous court case and actions on that.
What were you on parole for, Jason?
Arson.
What burned down, Jason?
Garage.
Go ahead.
On his first court date after he was bailed out, we went and got him an attorney.
Who's we?
My husband and I.
Go ahead.
After that, as far as with the restitution, initially he had to live with us as part of us bailing him out. And when we decided we were moving out of the area, he was given the option to move with us or stay in the area, and we would figure something out and work it out. He decided that he did want to move with us. So my husband and I paid that restitution from his previous case in order to free
The
it
arson
up.
case?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the other part of the restitution was for the current case. After everything was settled, there was $100 restitution.
So he
from
pled
that.
guilty. You pled guilty in the current case involving your ex-girlfriend.
Right. I couldn't afford the lawyer anymore, so I had no choice. And I can't...
Were you, at that time that the matter was scheduled for trial, still living with your father and stepmother?
No.
Did you ever pay the lawyer any money?
No.
So it was just a $1,000 retainer that you paid the lawyer?
Correct.
Yes.
That was after Jason moved out, after
Correct.
you had the altercation in your house with him?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamilton, so far I haven't heard anything about a loan.
Before Jason was bailed out, on the phone conversations, he was informed that anything that was pertaining to this legal case was a loan and was to be paid back. That was one of the conditions of him being bailed out. Jason made comments about how he was not like his sister, who also we had a problem with before that. He was not like his sister, and he would pay us back that money. That was said numerous times, and at the end of Jason's stay in our house, because everything was a loan, I had him sign a promissory note.
Well, I know Jason says that note, you sort of forced him to sign the note because you said you were going to have his bail revoked if he didn't sign the note.
That was not
Jason,
how it was
well, I'm
worded.
going to turn over to you now, Jason.
When I was on the phone with them before I was bailed out, I was not told that it was a loan.
I'm sorry, that's wrong.
Shh.
I moved in with them. I did not know I was going to move in with them. I thought they were going to bail me out, take me home. But instead they brought me to their place, worked for them. My work would be to pay off whatever I did.
Well, what kind of work did you do, Jason?
I helped him their construction business.
What did you do?
Labor. It was, unload the truck, load the truck, help my father, stuff like that. As far as me with my restitution, like I said, I never asked for the money. I never asked for any of it. I just simply said, when they went to pay it, I said, you don't have to do that. They said, oh, no, don't worry about it. I said,
No,
okay.
that's not what parents say, Jason. They don't use the word, oh, don't worry about it. They might have said, when you get yourself together, we hope you'll pay us back. Does that sound right? Huh?
Yes.
That sounds right. Life is so simple, Mrs. Hamilton. That's what parents say, even if they have an ongoing relationship with their children, if money is tight in a household. You don't say, well, this is a loan, and you will pay me back so much each month on this loan.
Your Honor, in the beginning, he did agree. Before I bailed him out, I told him, if I bail you out, you've got to pay this money back in a timely fashion, and you've got to get your act together, because the lifestyle he was living is totally, I'm afraid he's going to end up in jail for the rest of his life.
Where's your mother?
She's back in Buffalo.
Did you live with her all your life?
Yes.
Are you still in touch with her?
I live with her right now.
You have a sister?
Yes, I do.
How old's your sister?
19.
She in trouble?
No.
What kind of trouble?
Well, when we had her with us, she steals, she lies,
She's never been to jail, but she is a very emotionally troubled person, and she's been in and out of, she was in a group home at one point.
Jason, Tell me about the conversation you had with your father about the lawyer, about the public defender.
I was going to get a new PD to begin with because the guy that was representing me, he just didn't know what he was talking about. He had no clue.
What do you mean? Just a second. What do you mean you were going to get a new PD, public defender? You think that they give them out if you don't like one, you get a chance to get another one?
Well, that's what they were going to do. When I got rid of...
You live in a very good jurisdiction. If a criminal defendant came before me and said, I don't like that lawyer, I want to get another lawyer, you know what I would say to them? Go hire your own lawyer. You want to pick and choose? Go hire your own lawyer. This is the public defender for the day. You don't like this one? Get some money and go hire your own lawyer. You know, this is not one from column A and one from column B. You get one chance. Do you understand, Jason?
Yeah, I understand.
Good. Are you working now?
Yes, I am.
What kind of work are you doing?
I'm a barback at a banquet hall.
Hope this New York State Liquor Authority doesn't know about that. Is this arson conviction that you have a felony arson?
Yes.
Woohoo! Hope they don't value their liquor license. Listen to me, Jason. I want you to listen to me very carefully. I am not so concerned about the $1,000 that your stepmother and stepfather put up for the lawyer. I think they're going to have to tolerate that because I think that that's what parents do if they're afraid that their child is going to be confined. And I'm not so sure that that was a loan. But I'm concerned about the restitution, Jason, because what possible value is it to your moral compass if somebody else pays your restitution? Restitution is what you're supposed to pay, right?
I understand that. I was paying it.
How? I don't understand how you were paying.
I was working
with money I gave him.
Just a second.
Not just money you gave me. I was doing odd jobs here and there.
Well, you paid some of it, but they paid the rest.
I was paying on
Just
it.
a second. But they paid the rest. Well, paying the rest, it doesn't teach you any kind of a lesson. That's your responsibility. That's not your father's responsibility. That's not your stepmother's responsibility. That's your responsibility. The criminal justice system doesn't want to see. What do you do for a living?
I'm a real estate investor.
Doesn't want to see this lady who works. What do you do for a living?
I'm an investor also.
I don't know what that means, but life is too short.
Buy real estate.
They don't want to see their money going to pay your restitution. They didn't set fire to the garage and they didn't stalk your girlfriend.
I didn't either.
Well, then you lied to the court, sir, when you pled guilty.
What am I going to do if I ain't got money?
You know what innocent people do? They go to trial.
You have
just a second, Jason. You're 22 years old, is that what you told me before? How many times have you been arrested? Think, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. How many times have you been arrested?
13 times.
13. Shh. Come on. 13 times. 22 years old. And how many convictions do you have, Jason?
I have 4 convictions.
I have 5 children. How many kids you got?
4.
9 children altogether. Not one arrest.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And later today,
Miss Knapp, someone tried to kill me with a car. I wouldn't get into bed with them for a deductible or anything else.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Nicole Han Hamilton says her stepson, Jason Hamilton, owes for loans to retain an attorney and to pay restitution. Nicole says Jason has been arrested for arson and stalking.
You've been arrested 13 times. That cannot all be a mistake. The 4 times that you were convicted is not a mistake. The last 2 times that you pled guilty, I mean, you know the system, evidently. You're smart enough to know the system, that if you want a new PD, all you got to do is stamp your feet around, say, I'm not getting good representation. What you're supposed to do is not do things that get you into any trouble. Do you understand?
I know that.
Okay. And if you didn't learn the first time, and if you didn't learn the second time, the 10th time, you should have learned. By the time you got to the 12th time, it should have been bells go off in your head. Now you're at unlucky 13. Jason, you're 22 years old. You want to die?
No.
You don't care?
No, I care. I'm working now. I'm going for my GED. I have my life on track.
Good.
That's
then
what
pay your restitution. The lawyer, It's yours.
Fine. I
He's
just
gonna,
wanted him to learn a lesson.
He's
about
going to pay his
responsibility.
restitution. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $695. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I look at them as just white trash. What are they going to do? Sue their own son when he hits 18 for all the stuff that they paid for him?
As people can see, he is a punk. He'll always be a punk. I wash my hands with him. I got a beautiful 14-month-old son. I'm doing it right this time.
Smoking pot. I'm in probation. I don't want to get involved in no pot.
He's the one that smokes the pot, and I told him I didn't want it in my house.
I don't have a father. That's the way I look at it.
I'm here to guide you and show you the proper way. If you don't want to do that, I'm done.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Knapp versus Wheeler. Step forward.
Delivery truck driver Barbara Knapp is suing her ex-boyfriend, steelworker Claude Wheeler, for purposely driving her van into a ditch. Claude claims he swerved to miss a deer.
Ms. Knapp, it is your claim that Mr. Wheeler, who used to be your boyfriend, wrecked your car.
Correct.
And in addition to the damages to the car, you want some money for pain and suffering. I don't know what pain and suffering you want. You'll, I'm sure, explain it to me. Tell me about the day of the incident.
Okay, on December 28th, I do believe, we went grocery shopping, stopped at a bar and had a few drinks and was coming home and...
Okay, what time did you get to the bar?
8 o'clock.
8 p.m.?
8 p.m.
And how long did you stay at the bar?
Oh, possibly an hour maybe. No, not that long because we had groceries in the car, so about an hour then, say.
Is that right, sir?
Correct.
Okay, you stopped at a bar, groceries in the car, went home, on your way back to the grocery.
On our way back home, and we were discussing just things, and an old boyfriend was brought up because he was apparently came into the bar, and I had made his comment that he's still loving my life, and he didn't like it, so I don't know what was said, but then he swatted me upside the head, in the back of the head, and then I had told him that that was it and it was over, and he proceeded to say, oh, I'll show you that, and he drove my car down into the ditch. The next thing you know, a pole's coming, and we were headed straight for the pole, and he turned it just enough to go past the pole, but in the meantime, we kind of got wedged into the ditch and had to go out the windows to get out, and then I was just kind of in shock, I do believe, and
okay.
That was that.
Well, we were driving home that night. I had a few drinks, and we were arguing, and I was looking at her.
Try looking at me.
I don't recall slapping her upside the head or striking her. We were arguing, and I was looking at her, and when I turned my eyes back to the road, there were deer in the road, and I swerved to the right to miss the deer, and as soon as we got to the edge of the road, the snow sucked us into the ditch. I didn't do it intentionally.
Don't remember the deer?
There was no deer. He did it on purpose.
And you issued a report?
Mm-hmm.
You have a copy of that report?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it, please.
That is the traffic report. Okay.
Shh. You have any other police reports?
No, I went to the trooper's barracks to try to get the actual report from my statement and his statement, but apparently they do not let that out. They don't.
Your Honor, I have a signed statement of her from the night of the accident.
Can I see it, please? That's what I'm looking for. Well, you did sign a statement on the 28th of December, Ms. Knapp. You didn't say anything about him purposely damaging your car. You say at about 2 or 3 o'clock, my boyfriend was at my house. He had a margarita, which was left over from last night. At about 7 o'clock, we went grocery shopping at Wegmans and then went to Jit's Bar for a couple of beers and pool. He had 2 or 3 beers there. Then we started home. Claude was driving. I wasn't paying attention, and all of a sudden, we were going towards the ditch. I didn't see if there was a deer, just that he was going towards the ditch. You didn't tell the police that he tried to kill both of you?
No, I did not.
Why not?
I just was still in shock from all of it, and I just didn't. I just was going to go with the story with the deer because I just was in shock because that's what he wanted me to say, and I just didn't.
What happened?
Notice, Penal Law Section 210.45, in a written instrument, any person who knowingly makes a false statement which such person does not believe to be true has committed a crime under the laws of the state of New York and is punishable by a Class A misdemeanor. And that's what you signed.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any reason why you think, Ms. Knapp, that I should believe you now? Ms. Knapp, I have a couple more questions for you. When did you and the defendant separate?
It was,
Around the 1st of February.
So between December
The 5th.
28th and the 1st of February, you still lived together?
No, we did not live together.
Just dated.
And you dated the same way that you were dated before?
Pretty much.
It wasn't this, not in my eyes, because it was over in my eyes, and I just wanted to get a deductible from him, so I kind of...
Which I did pay. I paid the
He
$500
did pay the-
deductible.
yes. But I figured if I broke up with him, I wouldn't have seen any money or nothing, so I kind of just had to hang in there to get my deductible, and...
You know,
then a month and a half later, 2 months down the road, she's after for this $5,000.
that's not going to happen.
Thank you.
Miss Knapp, if someone tried to kill me with a car, I wouldn't get into bed with them for a deductible or anything else. And if you did, that's your problem. Bye. Case dismissed.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
21-year-old librarian Hiroshi Noma is suing former tenant, 21-year-old Deborah Drake, for rent and damages to their home. Deborah says Hiroshi snooped through her room.
It's case number 68 on the calendar in the matter of Noma versus Drake. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
Mr. Noma, you rented a room in your home to the defendant. According to you, she moved out, and she owes you for the last month's rent. In addition, you claim that she left the place a mess, she caused some damage to the room, and you want to be compensated for that. Ms. Drake says she owes you absolutely nothing. She didn't have to give you any sort of notice for the last month because your conduct gave her the willies. And you're a bit of a control freak, and it was really your conduct that forced her to move. In addition, she says she left the room in substantially the same condition that she found it. It was a mess when she found it. That's the way she left it. Right?
Correct.
How did you find this room, Miss Drake?
Well, when I first moved in, the paint on the walls, part of it was
I don't mean how did you find the... How did you locate this room to rent?
Oh, through a mutual friend.
When?
Late October, the beginning of November.
Did you sign a lease?
No, I did not.
You had a month-to-month tenancy?
Yes, basically.
When did you move in?
I moved in the beginning of November.
Give me the day.
If I have to throw a date out there, probably about the 8th, between the 8th or the 10th.
Did you pay November's rent?
Yes, I did.
What was the rent?
$550.
Did you pay December's rent?
December, I believe I was a bit late on that one. Yes, I did.
Why were you late?
I had just lost my job, and it took me a couple days to get the money, but I came up with it.
What about January?
January, yes, I paid that.
Is that correct, Mr. Noma?
Yes, she did, Your Honor, but she still owes me for a bounce check, which is another case.
Don't tell me about another case. You know, I'm not as young as I used to be. I can only think about one thing at a time.
Your Honor. She still does owe me $335 for that.
Are you confusing me again, Mr. Noma?
No, I'm not, Your Honor.
January she paid $550. Is that right?
Correct.
February?
February, I paid.
She did pay, but she owes me late charges for that.
But she paid it?
She paid.
It's March we're talking about.
Yes, we're talking about March, Your Honor.
Okay. What happened in February, Miss Drake, that caused you to move out of the house?
Basically, the living conditions, I couldn't deal with it anymore.
That is really kind of mushy. I don't understand that.
Well, basically, Hiroshi, he became too controlling. My privacy was invaded. People were going into my room. There was an incident where he went into my room while I was going to get the rent to pay the landlord, and he had found something that didn't even belong to me. And
Your Honor,
at that instant when I got back, he came and attacked me in front of all his friends and totally humiliated me. And
what did he find?
He found a bong in my room, which belonged to the guest.
What is that?
Smoking tool to use if you were to smoke drugs in one of my friend's possessions, which I wasn't aware of until that morning before I left.
So he found drug paraphernalia in your room?
Correct.
That's what we used to call drug paraphernalia. Now they call it something else.
Yeah,
man. Okay. How did you find this in her room?
I went into her room February. She knows that I went into her room.
Yeah, she knows now.
She knows.
Why did you go into her room?
Because, Your Honor, I was looking for something. I was looking for something that she told me to look for.
What?
I believe it was a receipt, a contract that we had because she wasn't paying on time. So I had to go into her room and look for that contract, and I told her about it.
Just a minute, I want you to, Mr. Noma.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
You can't double talk me, Mr. Noma. First, you said she told you to go inside the room to look for a contract.
Mm-hmm.
Did she tell you where to go and look in her room?
It was on the table.
That's not my question.
Yes, she did, on the table.
She said, go into my room, the contract is on the table.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that what you said, Miss Drake?
No, it's not.
No, Mr.
She's
Noma,
lying,
listen to me, because then you said I went into her room, she knew I was going to look for it.
That's a
There's
lie.
a difference. You have to be very careful, Mr. Noma. You may have a just cause today. If you fudge the truth, you're not going to be successful. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
So you were snooping around in her room.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. And you found this drug paraphernalia.
Yes, ma'am.
Much better. You see how easy that was? Then you don't get tortured.
I apologize.
Right? I don't like to torture people. It doesn't make me feel terrific. Okay, so you were snooping around in her room and you confronted her with the drug paraphernalia?
Yes, ma'am.
Who was there when you confronted her with the drug paraphernalia?
One of her friends was in the room when I confronted her in her room. I knocked on her door, went in her room, and talked to her about it. She kept denying it. All my friends were outside in the living room. They were not in the room. That room is about 15 by 15. All 7 people cannot fit in a small room.
Fine. Okay, now, Mr. Noma, let's get back to what you are suing for, which is March's rent.
Yes, ma'am.
Was Miss Drake living in her room in March?
No, ma'am. She gave me a 30-day notice at the end of February, an oral agreement that we had.
Did you give him the 30-day notice?
I gave him a notice, yes, probably, I believe it was February 26th or 27th, right before I moved, because I couldn't live there anymore. I told him I can't deal with it. This is my notice.
Okay. And basically what you're telling me is you left because he was invading your space.
Correct. It was unbearable.
And you felt that he had
unlivable.
violated the terms of your tenancy by going into your room without your permission.
Correct.
I agree. Okay?
Yeah.
I agree with you. You moved out on what date?
The 27th of February.
Did you take all of your stuff with you?
No, I did not.
What did you leave there?
I still have yet to move my furniture.
Then you owe him for March rent. Because just because you're behind isn't sleeping in the room, if your furniture and personal property is in the room, you're still renting his room. Do you understand?
Correct.
You can't walk out and say, well, I'm going to go hang out with my friends and I'll go get my property whenever I feel like it. I don't have to pay rent there if I'm not sleeping there.
He didn't say I had to pay the rent for March. He said, we actually settled a date. I don't remember the date exactly. He had told me if you don't have your stuff out by this date. And he said he would not let me get my stuff until I paid the rent.
Just a second. When did you go back there to get your stuff after the 27th of February?
Around between the 10th to the 14th or something like that of March, I went and got all my mail and my clothing, and I had told him if I could leave my furniture in the room, and then he had asked me if one of his friends could sleep on my bed and use my furniture while it was still there, and I agreed to that.
But you had your stuff there without his permission until the 15th of March.
Well, he knew it was...
I don't care what he knew. You had your stuff there, along with your clothing and everything else, until the 15th of March.
Correct.
And he hadn't given you permission between the 27th of February and the 15th of March to leave your stuff there. Only after the 15th of March. Is that right?
Correct.
That's why he's not suing you for April and May and June. So you owe him $550. Now let's get to the condition of the room.
Your Honor, the condition of the room was fine when she moved in. Prior to her moving in, one of our mutual friends was there. He never really had stuff. He never really posted anything on the walls. She posted posters on the walls. There's like
Show me photographs.
I do have photographs of a hole in the door, which one of her friends did. And this is an agreement that we had that she's going to reimburse me of any damages that she incurs in the room.
Who wrote this?
I did.
You're not going to law school, are you?
No, ma'am, but I was planning to.
I don't think so. Okay. Got a cigarette burn. Got some schmutz on the carpet. How did the hole get put in the door?
That was from a water bottle that was tossed by one of my friends to another friend of mine, and they didn't catch it, and it hit the door.
Well, so you have to fix that, right?
Yes.
So you owe him $865, $315 for the door and $550 for rent. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Good luck. Have a happy life.
Party's up. Excuse me. Step out.
It was just too crazy, controlling, and
Her parents would call about 5 times every day looking for her.
calling my parents by my bag, calling my job, snooping through my things.
I wasn't really snooping around or trying to be sneaky and stuff like that.
Basically, it was just crazy.
At the end, when I finally got fed up, I mean, I can't help people who can't help themselves.
Like living with my parents again, basically.
Don't be fooled by other people. They might be nice, but you don't know what's underneath them.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Ottoman versus Richardson. Step forward.
21-year-old student Joseph Ottoman is suing fellow student Timothy Richardson for assaulting him outside a bar. Timothy says a drunken Joseph and his female friends started the fight.
Mr. Ottoman, it is your claim that the defendant assaulted you outside of a bar.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Richardson says that there was an altercation outside the bar, but that altercation was started by you and finished by him, right?
Correct.
When was it?
It was August 28th.
And what's the name of the bar you were in?
The bar I saw these guys in earlier was called the Mystique.
That's where you had been for the evening?
Well, that was one of the places.
Is that the last place that you were in?
No, ma'am.
Well, what's the last place?
A bar called Zydeco's.
How many bars had you been to in total that evening?
Those two.
What time had you arrived at Mystique?
Probably around 10.
Who were you with?
I arrived by myself. I was meeting 2 girls down there.
What time did you leave Mystique?
Oh, must have been around midnight.
And that's when you went to this Zydeco's. And how long did you stay there?
Till it closed.
What time?
2.
Who drove?
We walked. One of the girls I was with lives about 2 blocks away from downtown, and we were walking to her house from there.
What happened when you left Zydeco's and you were walking home at 2 o'clock in the morning?
We were walking home to this girl's house. She points them out. They were across the street from us. She's all, there's those guys that were talking to me earlier. They start saying some things. I'm on my phone. I'm not paying attention. All of a sudden, I hear, F you, slut, blah, blah, blah. I say, what's going on here? I go run up to them. And I mean, it was a very awkward situation. I mean, 2 in the morning, all of us, 21, 22, nobody there was sober. It was a very drunken situation.
Well, that's good.
It could have very easily been avoided.
Mr. Ottoman, that's the first good thing that you've said to me, sir. You said we were all drunk.
Sure.
Well, unfortunately, Mr. Ottoman, you can't speak for anybody else, so I assume that what you're really saying was, I was drunk.
Sure.
So you acted with a certain amount of reckless abandon by running across the street.
I agree.
Good. Now, what happened when you got there?
Words were exchanged.
By the way, who were you talking to on the phone?
I couldn't tell you.
What do you mean you couldn't tell me? You said you were on the phone.
Yeah. Well, actually, I do know it's a girl named Corey. She was one of the ones that was actually there, but she was inside for some reason. I don't know why I was calling her.
I don't understand why you were talking to her if she was inside. Did
Me
she
either.
call you?
I couldn't tell you.
You couldn't because you don't remember?
No, I don't know why I was calling her. I was with her.
Okay. You don't know why you were calling her. So you ran across the street and you said what to Mr. Richardson?
Well, actually, Ashley ran across the street, and I followed her.
Ashley?
Yes, ma'am.
Who was also drunk?
Yes. The one that they were talking to.
What did she say when she went running across the street?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
And you went running after her?
Yes, ma'am.
Keep going.
After I get over there, words were exchanged. Started a little scuffle. I don't know exactly.
What do you mean a scuffle? I don't understand what that means, scuffle.
Sizing each other up, I guess.
I don't know what that means, sizing each other up.
There was no physical contact until I turned around, walking away, about 5 steps away, not even looking at this guy, runs up, hits me in the back of my head, and I fall down on my face. I bust 2 teeth out on the concrete.
And you hadn't hit him?
And he jumps in his car.
Just a second. And you hadn't hit him?
No.
And
no physical contact whatsoever.
And you're positive of that?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's what the assault is about?
Yes.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
So what you're saying is you were too drunk, you didn't connect?
Right.
He did.
When my back was turned and I was walking away.
Listen to me. You know what happens sometimes?
What?
Doodle happens.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Joseph Ottoman says He was assaulted outside a bar by fellow student Timothy Richardson. Timothy says Joseph started it, and he finished it.
Now we'll hear you, Mr. Richardson.
Well, first off,
Listen to me. See my eyes?
Yeah.
That's where your eyes are going to be. Not on your shoes, not on your hands. Right here.
Okay. Where the altercation happened, it was like 2 blocks behind Old Town, where all the bars were. And I was with some other friends that were out there, and I was walking with them. I lost my ride, and so I got on the cell phone, and as I got off the phone, I heard this Ashley, I presumed was his girlfriend, why the whole thing got started in the first place. And I heard her say something to me. I replied with no vulgarity. I just looked over, I replied nice. I was like, hey girl, what's up? And before she even said anything, he came out and started saying, oh, you know, F you, F this, you talking, blah, blah, all of that. And I was like, I'm not even talking to you, what's your problem? And then he came out into the middle of the street and was challenging me to come to him. And like, I don't have a habit of going and picking a fight when I'm outnumbered and all that. So I was just like, okay, yeah, that's right, I'll keep walking away. He's like, yeah, you know, you effing P word, keep walking away. I was like, all right, buddy, that's right, I'll keep walking away. So when I got to the car, he came and he got in my face, and that was the only time that I remember saying anything vulgar at all, because he was in my face. And and then on the second encounter, I tried to get away, and it's in the police report. He's like, yeah, that's right, get back in your effing Subaru. And he was in my face, and then when he tried to sidestep him, that's when confrontation arose. He pushed me, and the next thing I know, he comes at me punching me, and he actually connected with the last punch. He hit me in the lip. I fell down, I yelled for Chris, and that's when he rose his hands up and he's like, I'll F Chris up. And when he backed up and put his hands up, I didn't want it because I was kind of on my knees. I felt vulnerable. So I jumped up, hit him in the side of the face, and he had fell down. And then his other friend came to us trying to confront us. He's like, oh, what have you done? Because I saw that I hit him once, he fell to the ground, and I knew, he was in bad shape. And then his other friend came to us, and at that point, I thought the best thing to do was to leave, and we got out of there.
Okay. Who's Emily?
She was a lady who lived in the apartment building right in front of where...
Yes! The only one who's not a friend, who says there was a lot of cursing, both sides. Doesn't know who started the physical fight, but there was definitely an acknowledgement of a fight. 3 or 4 punches were thrown by each guy. Then the fella in the white pants hit another fella in the neck or head, and Joe fell face first into the street. I came outside to help. I kept him from getting up before the ambulance arrived. Emily says she saw lots of fighting before you got hit, sir.
It was drunken fighting. Now, you gotta understand, there was no contact made. I understand I was drunk. I admit that.
Listen to me. If you were drunk and there was lots of fighting, she says she saw a lot of fighting. So what you're saying is you were too drunk, you didn't connect.
Right.
He did.
When my back was turned and I was walking away.
Listen to me. He did.
Right.
He connected.
Okay.
You were too drunk to connect.
Right.
Why are you here?
Because I was walking away, calling it a night. When he decided to connect was when I was walking away, trying to get out of there. I didn't want any more to do with the situation. I was already talking to him, back to this guy. He decides, runs up, hits me in the back of the head, jumps in his car, and takes off.
You know what happens sometimes?
What?
Doodle happens. That's what happens when you're drunk and stupid. You know who started it? You and Ashley. You know who finished it? He did. You started it. He finished it. Stop being a crybaby. That's what happens when you're 21 years old and drunk and stupid. Things happen. And you ended up without 2 front teeth. That's your fault. It's not my fault. It's not his fault. Sometimes when you act drunk and stupid, you get the worst of the fight. Ends up on your face. That's what happens sometimes. So if you want to take this as a good life's lesson, sir, you don't drink until you're so stupid that you don't remember who you're talking to on the phone, what you're talking about. You stay sober enough to remain in control of your actions. And when you don't come crying to courts and say, you got to help me now because I was drunk and stupid. I make myself clear to you. Your case is dismissed.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
17-year-old Brycey Bassey and her mother, Carletta, are suing Tatum Hood for damage to their vehicle. Brycey says she was picking up her sister from school when Tatum hit her car.
Quiet in the courtroom, please. All rise. Now, this is case number 137 on the calendar in the matter of Bassey versus Hood. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Have a seat.
Who was driving? You weren't there?
No.
You're her mom?
Yes, I'm her mother.
She looks like she can take care of herself. If she can't, you can't help her because you weren't there.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Bassi, according to your complaint, you and the defendant got into sort of an altercation. You were going to pick up
my little sister.
Your sister in school, and you were going to pick up
my son.
Your son. And as a result of that, it is your claim that the defendant damaged your car. The defendant says that your poor driving was the result of the damage to your car, and you actually ran into her car. That's your defense.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Pull that a little bit closer to me so that I can see it a little bit better up here, Bird. Miss Bassi, you're the red car.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Go over and put your finger over there, please. That's where you were coming from, and you were making a left turn into the parking lot?
Yes, ma'am.
And the defendant was coming straight.
She was coming straight, and she didn't have a signal on. She was like right here where the curb is, where the driveway ends, and then she decides all of a sudden to, oh, I need to turn. And so when she turns, she comes.
Shh, don't speak.
She comes and she turns so close to the curb, and I'm about to turn thinking she's about to pass by, so I stop to prevent from hitting her because it's a very congested area. And she turns in, and then I turn in after her.
Well, so far, you understand she had the right of way.
Yes, ma'am.
You did not. So, okay, and what happened next?
I honked at her.
Why?
Well, because she didn't. I honked at her because she didn't use her signal.
Well, that's not a nice thing to do, Miss Bassi. That's not an appropriate thing to do. She had the right of way. So right there, you were wrong. You had no right to honk at her because she had the right of way. Whether you think she had a signal on or not, she says she did. It doesn't make any difference. In a congested road, and you're going across 2 lanes of traffic coming from the opposite direction, and she is on the side of the road where she could make a right turn into that spot, she's got the right of way. So, A, that's one for her team. You had no right to honk the horn. So what happened after you honked the horn?
We pull up into the driveway area. We're right here where you pick up all the kids. And I honked twice to get my little sister's attention. When I honked twice, she thought I was honking at her.
Again?
Yes, she thought I was honking at her again.
Well, now let me ask you this question. How many kids are outside?
A lot.
What do you think it would be like, Miss Bassi, if everybody honked their horn a couple of times to get their little sister's attention?
Well, yeah, I mean,
is there something wrong with your legs?
Well, no, she wasn't that.
Just listen. Was there something wrong with your legs?
There was nothing wrong with my legs.
Then if there's nothing wrong with your legs, you stop the car, and you get out of the car, and you say to your little sister, here I am. You don't sit in your car and honk the horn. We're going to go step by step. I haven't gotten to her yet, because I have a feeling you didn't behave reasonably either, because I read your answer.
No, ma'am.
And it's amazing to me that 2 women, you know, usually it's the guys that get into these jock wars, but 2 women behaving badly? How old are you?
17.
Well, you better go back to driving school and etiquette school, because so far you're not #1 on my hit parade today. So you honked your horn for your sister, and the defendant thought you were again honking at her. That's what you assumed. So what did she do?
She flips me off and starts waving her fist behind me. She turns around and she just starts doing the little hand things and yelling.
Not a nice thing. Just a second. Not a nice thing to do.
You're right.
Okay. So she gestures to you in an obscene gesture. What happens next?
I looked at her and I threw my hands up like trying to say, no, I was not honking at you. And, you know, she's still yelling, and I was yelling back at her. I'm like, look, I'm not trying to
So now
honk
you're
at you.
yelling at each other?
Yes.
Good. Go ahead.
And then after that, my little sister does see me, and she comes to the side of the car. And the defendant is still very angry that I had honked at her. And, you know, we were still arguing with each other. And so at this time, I was trying to move. I had my little sister in the car. I wanted to get out of there. It's very busy. She doesn't move.
Well, where's your car?
Right here.
So you're behind her?
Mm-hmm. So she pulls up a little bit, we pull up, and then, you know, she's still mad. And I honked at her again. I'm like, can you please move?
All right, so why are you honking?
She wouldn't move.
Why does she have to move?
She could have moved, but
why,
she was...
Now, why does she have to move?
Well, her son had already gotten to the car.
Look, I'm looking at your car, and I'm seeing what you did. So you pulled out, according to you, you pulled out because she's not moving, and you pulled around her.
Yes, after she did it, but no, I got out the car. I even got out the car and said, will you please move? And she's still cussing me out.
Can I ask you a question? Why? Miss Bassi, what? Stop it!
Yes, ma'am.
Why are you still arguing with her and imploring her to move Well, all you had to do was drive around her.
At the time, there were still cars going. There's a lot of cars still going through. And then when she was free, she wouldn't move. I was behind her to a place where I couldn't really squeeze around her this way or squeeze around her this way, but I managed.
Because everybody's picking up their children.
Yes.
Keep going.
Then I did manage to, because my car is small enough, so I'm like, okay, maybe I can squeeze around her. I was able to squeeze around her, and I drove all the way to over here to the drive area. Then she comes all the way, she drives over here, rolls down her window and said, "Is this the way black people act?" And I'm like, what was that supposed? I looked at her kids in the car, and they appeared to be biracial to me. And then I looked at her again, I'm like, what was that supposed to mean?
Okay.
And at this time, yes, I mean, we were cussing each other out. She then says, "Do you want to fight?" And I'm like, do I want to what? And my little sister gets out of the car.
What'd she get out of the car for?
She got out she's like, "Do you want to fight?" And my little sister's like, "What do you want to?" She got out. She's like, "What do you want to fight for?"
Where's the little sister? Step up here. Move over there. What did you get out of the car for?
Because at that time, Mrs. Hood had opened her door like she was going to get out, so I'm like...
Sounds like a perfect reason for you to stay in your car. If somebody, according to you and according to your sister, is acting like a lunatic and says, "Do you want to fight?" doesn't sound like the kind of situation you want to say, "Sure." Now, what's your first name?
LaQuise.
LaQuise, genius. What did you do when you got out of the car?
Well, I got out of the car because, you know, by that time I was really mad. And so I guess I wasn't thinking. I got out the car and then, you know, I kind of went over to her car and then...
So you kind of went over to her
yeah,
car?
By
what does that mean? That means you went over to her car?
I walked over to her car.
What?
I walked over to her car.
And what did you say when you walked over to her car?
I really didn't say anything. I was waiting on her. She said she was going to get out and fight. And I'm like, is
and that's what you were waiting to do. You got out of the car to fight her.
I mean, I was going to see if she was
Miss Bassey back there, you should be very proud of them so far. Are you following me?
I am.
Right? So far, I'm looking at your mother and I'm looking at you two, and I got news for you. I don't think that your mother would have reacted the same way that day that you did. Right, Miss Bassey?
Yes.
Thank you.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
When people behave badly and they have no defense for their bad behavior, they infuse racism to try to inflame the fact finder. Listen to me. It doesn't work.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 17-year-old Brycey Bassey says, during an argument at a junior high school, fellow motorist Tatum Hood rammed her car. Tatum claims Brycey and her sister threatened her life.
Okay, so after you got out of the car and walked over to Miss Hood's car because she said she wanted to fight, I assume at some point you got back into the car.
I walked over back to my sister's car, but because, you know, she was about to turn right by then. But then Mrs. Hood hits my sister's car, and I was shocked. I had no time to get back in the car because that's when she turned out.
Well, just a minute. Your sister is making a turn from the wrong lane.
No. This is to go right. I went left after she had to hit my car. I was not even moving when she hit my car. She hit my car on purpose.
You mean she plowed into your car, you were standing still?
Yes, my car was not in motion.
Okay. And you have photographs of this car?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it. Oh, that's a lot of damage. All right, Miss Hood, ball's in your court.
It was January 19th, 2005. May I go over here? I went to the school to pick up my son that's here. I'm the blue car here. I'm coming down Tyler Road. I believe it would be south. She's coming north. She is right here. As she said, it's very congested. There's lots of cars. If she would have been, like on her chart, over here already turning, there was tons of cars coming. I did have my blinker on.
Listen to me. She was wrong. I already said she was wrong.
Okay. So we turn in. When we turn in at Wilbur, there's also, there's like 2 lanes like this. I stay in this lane. We never got over here because to get over here, you have to stop up against the school and there's buses and handicap parking. I stayed in this lane. As I was turning, she started calling me all out of my name. She called me a white bee. Go back to driver's ed, learn how to drive. I'm going to kick your butt. As we stopped, I stopped here. She was behind me. She honked. I thought she was honking at me. Stupidly, I flipped her off. I never shook my fist at her, nothing else. She got out of her car at that point in time, come up, beating on my window, was screaming, I'm going to kick your butt, but she was not saying butt. Get out of your truck, you white bee this, white bee that. I rolled down my window. I said, you need to go get back in your car before you embarrass yourself. She went back into her car. We both proceeded to go. She spun around me. She's still screaming. I'm saying some stuff. We get like we're right here, and she is calling me all out of my name still, profanity, racial slurs. I am married to a black man. I am not racist. I rolled down my window. I said, you are giving young black women a bad name. You should not act like that. I would never allow my daughter to act like that or my son. She's like still using profanity, still cussing, and she's like, pull over her. By this time, the other sister was screaming at me too. Pull over, we're gonna whip your butt, blah, blah, blah. She starts to go. I take off. Bam, I hit her. She's barely like this. They're gonna pull over. They're trying to cut me off to fight. She never got out of the car. I hit her. When I hit her, we stopped. I probably stopped for 30 seconds. I'm not going to lie. Both of them at that time got out of the car. She was never out of the car till after I hit her. And then they were screaming, we're going to kill you, you stupid white bee, blah, 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 calling me racial. I can't believe it has turned into a racial thing. It's so sickening. And then...
No, it's not. It's not. Listen to me. Listen to me, Miss Hood. It's not racial here. It's not racial in this courtroom.
You're right.
Sometimes when people behave badly and they have no defense for their bad behavior, they infuse racism to try to inflame the fact finder. Listen to me. It doesn't work. Go ahead.
Afterwards, I leave because I don't know what they're going to do. Brycey then jumps back in the car with the younger sister that she picked up who's in the back seat, chasing us. I'm stopping at stop signs, stopping at stoplights. Each time we stop, she's getting out of the car, trying to come up to the window, still screaming. When we see two cop cars coming, I pull into a parking lot. She pulls in. When she pulls in, she stops. She gets out of her car. I'm going to mollywop you. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to beat you up.
May I please see the police report?
Yes, ma'am.
And then
I want to see the police report.
The cops that pull up are telling her to get back in her car. She don't. They restrain her. I'm sorry.
I want to read the police report. You told the police you got out of the car.
My sister got out of the car.
Brycey, you signed the statement. You said, before that, I got out of the car and asked what the problem. And one continued to yell at me.
When I got out the car, that's way before whenever we were still in the school area.
You didn't tell me that you got out of the car.
I did. I said I got out of the car and asked her to move.
No, you told the police you got out of the car and asked her what her problem was.
Yeah, I asked her what the problem is. Can you please move? I was not honking at you.
Did you do the wrong thing that day?
Yes, I did.
How much of this accident was your fault?
I would probably say, I don't know. I'm not going to say that it was the least of my fault. No, it was not. I shouldn't have honked at her. You know, that's the one thing. I shouldn't have honked at her. And then when I honked twice, I probably should have yelled for my sister. Or, you know, then after I got out the car, you know, instead I should have probably just sat there and waited for her to move.
Yes, you want to say something?
For what it's worth, I just want to say that I did speak with Mrs. Hood regarding this accident 2 days later. I went over to Mrs. Hood's home because I got the police report. I didn't have insurance. I was going to file the insurance, and I needed to know where she lived. The police did give us her address. And I went. She was very polite. I didn't have a problem with her. Mrs. Hood told me she was having a bad day that day. She said she was in an argument with her husband's nieces, and, you know, she was upset, and she was already tensed up and upset. And she did tell me she intentionally hit my daughter's car. She never denied hitting her car, but she also proceeded...
She said, just a second. Are you telling me, Miss Bassey, that Miss Hood said I intentionally hit her car?
Yes, she did. Those were her exact words to me. Yes.
Interesting. Is that what you said to her?
I said I hit her daughter's car. I never intentionally hit it. She was coming this way to cut me off. I did hit Brycey's car. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't hit it.
No, I know you did. I have the pictures to prove that you did. I'm just surprised that Miss Bassey is telling me that you used the word intentionally. I mean, I can't imagine anybody intentionally hitting somebody else's car.
Oh, That's what she told my daughter and myself. And she also told me she left the scene of the accident. I don't agree with Brycey chasing her. She said she left the scene of the accident not because she was afraid of my daughter.
Not just chasing her, Miss Bassey.
She left because she said she was unlawfully driving her truck.
Listen to me. I got it. I don't believe this story. I believe that what your daughter did was pull out, speed around her, and I believe that when she pulled out and sped around her, Miss Hood caught up with her.
No, I don't believe that, Your Honor.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Because Brycey wasn't moving when she hit her.
No. Listen to me. I said Miss Hood caught up with her. She pulled around her fast in a school pickup zone. That's what your daughter did. She had an attention span and a fuse that was about this short. And she created a situation in there because she's got a hot temper and she wasn't behaving like a mature driver. Neither was this one. But she's not the plaintiff. She is. So you had, according to your complaint, $4,000 worth of damage to your car with no insurance.
No.
And all I'm asking...
She had insurance.
Insurance.
Yes, we had insurance.
Oh, good. So how much did the insurance pay?
We didn't want to file the insurance.
No.
Well, you better.
Insurance does not take care of damages that have intentionally been done to the car.
Well, listen to me very carefully. I would file with my insurance carrier if I were you. Ordinarily, if this was solely her fault, I would say, well, why should you file with your insurance? Because that means your premiums are going to go up.
Yes, which they would have.
You're absolutely right. They would have, because she's a 17-year-old driver who was involved in an accident. But this accident was partially her fault. So I think you ought to file with your insurance company. Now, what kind of deductible do you have?
$500.
Good. Ms. Hood's going to pay that. But you file with your insurance company. This accident was partially your fault, and that's what you have insurance for.
Even though Mrs. Hood agreed to fix her car? She agreed to fix it.
Listen to me. Then you don't come to court, Miss Bassey. Then you don't come to court. But if you come here and you're asking a fact finder to make a determination of what the right thing to do is, in this case, the right thing to do is because your daughter was at least 50% responsible for what went on that day because she did the wrong thing. She may have caught her on a bad day. That's the way sometimes you catch people. What? She was not in a hurry to go to a summit meeting. So she waits her turn, and she takes an extra couple of minutes, and her sister doesn't get out of the car in an aggressive stance. She's not picking up her baby sister, who's 3 years old. Your other daughter looks like she can well take care of herself, and she's got an attitude. So that's what you have insurance for. Miss Hood has to accept some responsibility for what she did, and she's going to cover your deductible. Put it into your insurance. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $500. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.